Electric cars are going to come at you thick and fast. We already have the Mercedes EQC in the luxury segment, and in the sort of mass market segment, we have the Nexon EV. In between that, we have the Kona Electric, the MG ZS EV. Mahindra is going to bring out a whole range of electric cars. So all of that are going to come at you thick and fast, but none of them are going to look as freaking cool as the Jaguar I-Pace. Now, of course, we've seen pictures of this, but in the metal, it looks unbelievably good. It is an absolute stunner, and it also goes like a belter. Now, in this video, what we are going to actually see is, can the electric car be sort of all the car that you need? Obviously, if you're going to be doing Delhi-Pune, you're not going to be able to use an electric car, at least not as of now. But if you're doing short intercity commutes, for instance, Mumbai-Pune, or Delhi-Agra, or Delhi-Jaipur, or Bangalore-Chennai, can an electric car be the only car that you actually would need? Well, we have picked up the car here in Mumbai, and we're going to drive it to our home base in Pune. We're going to charge it there, then we're going to spend the whole day shooting it, and we're going to tell you if the I-Pace can be the only car in your garage. I can tell you for a fact that it will be the coolest car in your garage. Maybe even the fastest, because this is an absolute belter. Since this channel is all about the thrill of driving, we start with a few corners. The I-Pace gets double wishbones at the front and Jaguar's integral link at the rear, all tuned for sportiness. And there is masses of grip. This is a heavy car, 2.2 tons, but all that weight is concentrated in the batteries under the floor and between the wheels. So the center of gravity is low, the weight is within the wheelbase, and that gets it to go around corners really, really fast. And now let's hit the road. So we are outside Bombay at the McDonald's just before the expressway. Now when we got the car, it was showing 95% battery charge left and a range of around 325. We did a few cornering shots and all that. So now the range is down to 81% and 291 kilometers, which is more than enough to get us back home to Pune if we are sensible on the expressway. If we really push it on the expressway, then yeah, we might have a problem with the range. Another thing I want to point out is this ride height. Now, getting to all these places, the roads are not that great, but it has an off-road mode where the suspension rises and you get better ground clearance. So that is a good part. It almost looks like a Discovery with this kind of ground clearance. So with the I-Pace, we get a 90 kilowatt-hour battery, and that makes 394 bhp and 696 newton meters of torque. Now the torque, like with all electric cars, it comes on at near 0 RPM. So when you flex your right foot, and you don't even have to flex your right foot that much, just tap on the throttle slightly and you get that whole wave of torque that makes the I-Pace feel really quick. Now, in terms of the way the car is set up, the I-Pace is set up to be sporty. Jaguar is a sporty brand. This looks extremely sporty. And then when you stick it in dynamic mode, it goes like a bullet. So the responses to the throttle is near instantaneous, and it is nearly vicious. It goes incredibly well. Step on it and it's unbelievably quick. Now, we've driven the e-tron, we've driven the EQC. The e-tron is set up to be more comfort and luxury oriented. The EQC, when I first drove it, I said it goes like an AMG. This, the I-Pace, it's a missile. It is so quick. The turn-off speed is incredible, and then it makes all these weird Jetsons-like noises when it is in dynamic mode, and when you put your foot down, it sounds really cool, though I would actually prefer it to be completely silent. So that silence combined with the insane turn-off speed, that is really shocking. If you have a passenger with you, they will scream their lungs out. That does not happen in the e-tron. That happens sort of in the EQC. But with the I-Pace, it is guaranteed. They will blow their minds. Just imagine, no noise, nothing, and then I don't know if you can hear this, but it's just a strange sci-fi sound. Maybe it sounds like aliens being strangled. I don't know how to put that into words properly, but it's just a very weird but equally cool sound. So we've spoken about its mad turn of speed, but what is it like when you just stick it into comfort mode and just drive it like you would a normal car? What does the I-Pace feel like? First things first, it is just so easy to drive. Now, this is a case with all electric cars. It's just because the torque is near instantaneous, the responses are immediate. It's just so easy to drive, stress-free, absolutely stress-free. Now, a big point of stress, of course, is range anxiety. So, like I said, when we left Bombay, it had 95% of range. Now here on the expressway, we got 231 kilometers range left. At 100 kilometers per hour, it is actually very efficient. But now going up the mountains, that's where it actually puts a larger strain on the batteries. It sucks in more power out of the batteries, and that's when you can see the range drop. So two things: when you're going uphill, that affects the range, and when you're flooring it, that definitely affects the range. Range anxiety, well, as of now, there's no need for range anxiety. But if I were brave and if I were to do Bombay, Pune and go back to Bombay on that same charge without actually juicing it up in Pune, and then when the range goes down to 100 or even 50, when you are getting close to Bombay, that's when you'd go nuts with range anxiety. Right now, I'm all right. So of course you do need more chargers, you need more infrastructure. But in the city, if you've got a charger at either your house or your office, and Jaguar supplies a charger, we've got an 11 kilowatt charger at our office where we are going to charge this up once we get to Pune. So if you have that facility either at your home or your office, you're sorted really. You don't need to depend on public charging infrastructure. And the beauty of an electric car is that you don't have to use public infrastructure. So you don't have to go to a fuel station and give your credit card to pay, wait in line, all of that. So it is actually a very beneficial thing, especially in this day and age of social distancing and you don't want to meet people and all of that. And EV, it helps you stay completely isolated from everybody else. You go home, plug in your charger, and you're sorted. Another thing I have to point out is on the expressway between Bombay and Pune, you actually do have a lot of EV chargers coming up. They aren't yet operational, but they should be operational very soon. So you can stop for a cup of tea or coffee and actually juice up the car. So there are charging points on the expressway petrol pumps, but as you can see, they're not working as of now, they're not operational, and you have dirty IC engine cars already parked over there blocking your charging spot. But soon they will be operational and you will be able to charge cars like the I-Pace. So juice it up here and continue on your journey. So then, if you're from Bombay and you want to go to Mahabaleshwar, you juice it up completely at the EV charger on the expressway and you're sorted. You can actually go up to Mahabaleshwar. Now, ride quality. Can this deal with Indian roads? First things first, it has height adjustable suspension. So it's got an off-road mode, and when I drove it at its global launch, feels like ages ago that we went for a global launch, but when I drove it at its global launch, that time we actually did off-roading with the I-Pace and it dealt with those off-road conditions really well. You would get really nervous taking an electric car on an off-road kind of terrain. What happens if you hit something, for instance? So that is going to be there, and I wouldn't, at least now, I would not go off-road with an electric car. But on Indian roads, it actually works well. So if you got like a nasty speed breaker, you can go into off-road mode. It goes up really high. You can clear that. No problem about it touching down. That's one. The second is comfort. Now the ride is a bit firm, and over these concrete roads, you can feel that firmness. So it is a slightly unsettled ride and you do tend to move around a bit. So it's not completely plush. The e-tron, for instance, is really much more comfortable than the I-Pace, and the e-tron has more space also in the I-Pace. Behind me there isn't much space and the seats are very low, so you're sitting with your knees high up, so it's not all that comfortable. To drive though, this is damn involving. Going around corners, it really does corner really well. So you can have a load of fun with it. In dynamic mode, you can also switch off traction control and you can get the tail to come out a wee bit. It obviously has all-wheel drive, but you can get it to slide slightly. It is a lot of fun. There is a lot of grip when you're going around corners, and also because with e-motors you have torque vectoring on both axles, so you can get on the gas in the middle of the corner, it grips well. And also, if like in an IC engine car, when ESP comes in, you can feel the power cutting out. But here in an electric car, because it is all electronics, you can't feel the power being cut down. So you don't know that ESP is kicking in or something. It all feels very seamless, very linear. It deploys just the amount of power the tires can actually handle, and it all feels mighty vice-like, the grip. Now let's talk about the interiors, and this is a damn cool place. Huge glass roof. It does not open, which is great, so you can't stick kids outside, but you do get a lot of light and it makes the cabin feel very spacious, which actually it is not. The layout of the cabin, it is freaking cool. It is so good, so nicely done. This was Ian Callum's one of his last designs, and he really worked his magic on the car. You got to remember that the I-Pace actually came to market almost a year before the EQC and the e-tron. So Jaguar were ahead of the game compared to the mighty Germans. And they really knocked this out of the park. They did it really well. It won the World Car of the Year, and deservingly so. It also won World Design of the Year, very deserving. And it won World Green Car of the Year, obviously also very deserving. And we are at our office in Pune. Now, Bombay to Pune, it has done, and it has got still 46% of charge left. Now, this is with us experiencing the I-Pace, so using full acceleration, doing some cornering shots, all of that, yet 46% of charge is left, and it has got 145 kilometers of range still to go. So technically, we can still drive it to Bombay on the same charge, but we are in our office, we've got a charger, and actually thanks to Audi India that we've got this ABB charger. So plug it in, and tomorrow morning we go and take it off to some of our testing roads and see what the performance of the I-Pace is like. Overnight charging done, and the I-Pace now has a 400 kilometer range, which actually is good enough for most commutes that you have. And even if you've got a factory on the outskirts of the city, this will take everything in its stride. So range anxiety is not really an issue. And like we saw yesterday, you can do Bombay Pune and back to Bombay in one charge, and it'll take you there, no problem. Plus, the unique feature of an electric car is that it does not lose much juice when you are in stop-go traffic because of the brake energy regeneration. So actually it works much better when you are in traffic. The range only drops when you're driving fast or when you're on the highway, when you're not braking, so there's no regen happening. But otherwise in the city, if you're stuck in stop-go traffic, no problem, because the range actually will not drop drastically. I actually managed to figure out how to switch off that dynamic sound enhancer where it sounds like an alien being strangled. This now is how I like it. Silent, deathly silent, no noise at all. There's a bit of whine from the electric motors when you give it the beans. I guess you still give it the beans, right? Even though it's an electric car. You can't gas it, but you can give it the beans. Another thing that I noticed while trying to reduce that dynamic sound enhancer was just how complicated this whole infotainment is. It's not intuitive, it's not the easiest to use. Even this virtual cockpit, to try and change the modes and all of that, it is a little fiddly. You have to go through the different menus and you keep going out of the menu, going back into the menu. So it's not the nicest to use. And I must also point out this drive selector. Normally you have drive below neutral, not above neutral. Here it is a bit counterintuitive. So when you're doing 3-point turns, for instance, your hand automatically goes for the wrong button, because even in a normal gear shift, you pull back for drive, you push forward for reverse. So ahead you have reverse, behind you have drive. Here it is ulta, so that takes some time to get used to. I like the fact that it's got proper hard buttons for the important things. So on this ridge out here, you get the drive mode selector, so you can switch it into dynamic mode, and it is prominently marked with a checkered flag, so you know exactly the button to press. You can switch off ESP, you don't have to hunt through the menus to switch it off, so that's a good thing. You have these prominent buttons to raise and lower the suspension, and it raises and lowers like really quickly, so again you don't have to hunt or fiddle around with a small touch button out there. So that is a nice part. And also in terms of the design of this dashboard, it is really cool. Now, electric cars are the future. That's what everybody says, but they should look like the future. None of the other electric cars really look like the future. The I-Pace, it looks like it is from the future. The body, the shape, all these cuts and the aerodynamic scoops, the interiors, the way it is laid out, it does not look like any other Jaguar that you jump into. It looks completely different, and I really love it for that. This is actually a very cool car to drive. I actually woke up early this morning to get out and drive the I-Pace. So it is floating my thrill of driving boat, to be honest. Maybe after a while, once we get used to this turn of speed and all of that, then we might not be that excited. But this morning I was excited to drive an electric car, and that has never happened to me. Now, the other questions are, how does this compare to the e-tron and the EQC? In terms of the turn of speed, with the V-Box, we got a 0 to 100 time of 4.98 seconds, so under 5 seconds. So this goes like a supercharged V8, in fact faster than a supercharged V8. It is quicker than the EQC. The EQC comes a close second. The e-tron is not as quick. The e-tron, in fact, has been set up to be more luxury oriented. So the throttle response, the turn of speed, all of that, it's quick, but it is more on the luxury side of things. The ride quality of the e-tron is also much better. As for the EQC, it is too low for our Indian roads and the speed breakers. It touches everywhere, and it does not have air suspension. In fact, it is the only one in this category not to get air suspension, height adjustable air suspension, and that is its biggest drawback. Plus, it is the stiffest. The I-Pace, it is stiff, but it's not as stiff as the EQC. It is sporty, slightly sportier than the EQC. So if you are of that bent, if you want something to look like it's from the future and go like stink, the I-Pace is definitely for you. If you want something more comfortable, luxurious, more spacious, then the e-tron is the luxury electric car for you. If you ask me what should you buy, well, if you want a luxurious electric car, then definitely the e-tron. If you want something that's thrilling, fun to drive, then definitely the I-Pace. Well, they keep saying that EVs are the future, and if this is an indication of the future, well, I'm not going to be crying too much. It's okay. It's not too bad. Let's deal with it. I'm sure it'll get better and better, and of course more affordable. And look at the way it moves. Fucking hell. It's a freaking rocket. This is greased lightning. Yep. Actually, that should be the headline of the story in Evo India magazine. Greased lightning. Couple of weeks ago, when Jaguar announced that their entire range would go full electric by 2030, we all cried boo-hoo. Imagine the growler not making any growly noises. All that rich history of the V8s, the sports cars, all of that gone completely silent. Blue bloody murder, we screamed. And then I drove the I-Pace and I have become a convert. Look at the I-Pace, it just looks so cool. I think this is the best looking electric car on sale right now, and one of the nicest looking cars you can buy, period. It is fantastic to drive. Okay, it is a little firm and not that comfortable, but behind the wheel, it puts a big, wide, fat smile on your face. Of course, it is expensive. All new things do come at a price. But then, this is an indicator for the future. And if future Jaguars take inspiration from the I-Pace, you won't find me complaining about electric vehicles. Read all about the Jaguar I-Pace and the Audi e-tron in the July issue of Evo India, which is on stands now. You can order it from evoindia.com/magazine, and it is also available on Amazon and Flipkart. Subscribe to the Evo India channel and hit the bell icon to keep pace with the thrill of driving.